Welcome back, Nigel.
It looks like I'm the most keen, Pete.
Well, you've got real experience of doing this, and I love it that that's a different approach to the one that we had in Natural Resources Wales, where Naomi and Becky were keen to show something that was, that was close to to what was there, whereas you're co-creating with young people to again, I suppose to touch hearts as much as to touch minds.
It's almost a storytelling aspect. It's almost the kind of intergenerational, reciprocal kind of exchange of knowledge at the same time. It's quite impactful. Um, I want to produce a story, an animation of tree equity delivered in Splot. But again, it would be based upon drone work. It would be based upon a very creative narrative, almost a children's story, done in a very children's story type illustration way. But again, I hinted at the cost of these things. It can be prohibitive and finding the right people to do those things. But I argue that our sector really hasn't, unlike kind of capitalist commerce, or commerce and advertising, they really afford to sell dreams and visualize dreams, don't they? Whereas I think traditionally our sector hasn't.
No, no, and the 5K that was spent on the visualizations that you've just been taken through, that's chump change to the average business.
It is. It is.
So we're doing a river restoration project. It's been designed for the in Heath Park in the centre of Cardiff, and whilst we do have some generic river restoration ones, that is our next step now to go through planning. Is to have a this is Heath Park, this is the Nantawedel, this is how it looks. Well, we don't need to tell people how it looks now, but this is what we want to do. This is how we want to amend it. So we're at that point, because we're going through planning, that's where we're doing, and we'll do discussions with friends of Heath Park groups and stuff like that. So that's where we're sort of, because I 100% see it as, people don't like change, but actually sort of showing what is it. But really importantly, what we're going to try and do this time as well is show them what it's like immediately after, and then how it's going to bloom over the year, because that's where it's particularly worrying, I think, is where people see like the kind of quagmire of mud when we've done some earthworks, and these ponds, or this sort of meandering river that we've pitched and sold them on, doesn't look like that straight away at all. So that is kind of, people see things and will write it off straight away. So that's one
Like
of the things
managing
we're going to have to do.
expectations, isn't it? A bit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I was fortunate enough over the weekend to be at the Do lectures, which if you've never come across them, they're kind of like a, I don't know, boot camp for creatives and entrepreneurs. And there was a load of really interesting stuff coming out there about the use of, God help us, artificial intelligence. But this strikes me as this that might be one of the affordable ways that we can get to the kind of pre-stage. So using, I think, is it Mid-Journey, the which is one of the that seems to be one of the favorite platforms for producing any images, by iterating and developing the queries that you use for that, you might be able to come up with, with some initial ideas, which could then be used as a way to, bootstrap the funding for more developed ideas. I know AI images have got a bad reputation, like, six-fingered hands and things like that. But yeah, maybe it's a way in. Nigel.
Sorry to talk too much. And please tell me to shut up if I am. You're very welcome to. Um, I'm very resistant towards the AI side of it purely because of the energy usage
Yes.
and also the kind of usurping creatives in that space. but primarily the energy usage side of things. The other side, the point of the animation project that I was thinking of, it was meant to be kind of the progressing through with the commissioners, the older generations commission, the children's commission, the future generations commissioner. The concept was almost to go to their user groups and speak to groups that live with high tree equity. You guys know about tree equity, don't you? And the concept. You've had a green
Had a
infrastructure
webinar on it. Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
it. And user groups of low tree equity, but opening up with this visualization animation, this kind of metaphor of language, of storytelling, of tree equity delivered and what it might look like and what it meant to the characters in the story. But it's almost acts as a talking point, as a co-production kind of lots of people hate trees because they think of the leaves blocking the drains, birds pooing on their cars, debris from the trees, shading the houses, blocking their views, all of those kind of things. So a lot of people have lost sight of the vital importance of trees. But when you go through this process of actually what are those trees doing for my grandchild, its health and well-being, and what is, what we actually intuitively have as knowledge as older people, where we were poorly, might have gone to a park with good green infrastructure to get fresh air, to alleviate our symptoms. It's that penny drop moment where you speak to people's intrinsic values rather than their extrinsic values. And those conversations are very potent conversations if you want to bring people with you or to help them understand the worth and value of green infrastructure in nature. So it's almost using these narratives, these visualizations, as a opening gambit, as an entry point to wider conversations to touch people's hearts and minds.
Absolutely. I know we've got a couple more folk on the phone who haven't had a chance to speak yet. We've got Zoe, and somebody called Mac User. So I don't know if either of you guys want to unmute yourselves and just give us your response to what has been said so far. Just giving time for people to find the right button to press. In the meantime, a question for Becky and Naomi. Having heard about working with the potential target audience to develop perhaps slightly less realistic visualizations, more visualizations from the heart. What are your immediate responses to that?
I actually was yesterday talking to someone from Cardiff Uni who'd done their PhD and they were looking at suds on Park Place, and they'd done a similar thing where they'd used crafty things to actually get people people in the community or students to model what they wanted it to look like. I think it's a really good idea in terms of bringing people on the journey and getting that buy-in from an early stage. I mean, that's what the visualizations are designed to do. They're designed to bring people on a journey. But as Nigel was saying, if people are involved in that design process, and they're likely to be more sold on the idea from the start, which will probably in turn then relate to how they interact with the environment and how they respect it and understand it as well. So yeah, I think it was a good point, well made. Yeah.
I was also going to say the visualizations, as Naomi sort of pointed out, it had numbers all over it. So that comes with a description of the issues. So the before and after, you got the sort of missed opportunities. So they would talk about sort of, oil from cars and microplastics running down the drain, and that then impacts the water quality and the habitats within the channel. So and then on the other side of it is it like filters the water, and it sort of flows and stuff like that. So that so we're trying to play to the different audiences there. So yes, paint a picture paints 1,000 words and everything, and it looks lovely, and people may be very inspired by that. They may be also very skeptical of that, but that's where you can sort of say, yes, we have thrown the kitchen sink at this. And as much as I would love it to sort of be like that, even if we had this, at small sort of, let's start small and grow, that's kind of where we are. But those descriptions, those annotations, that information does show that this isn't there just to look beautiful. Whilst it does have that benefit, it is there to do something either for intrinsic value. So adding bird boxes is fantastic for biodiversity, and people may not care about that, but it's there. And it is a nice place to be when you hear birds singing rather than the sounds of traffic. But also, those trees have that cooling effect. They have that, sort of the rain gardens have the effect of not wandering around in puddles, dirty puddles, all the time. So, we're trying to put, a varied amount of information in this so that we can speak to hopefully differing perspectives and differing audiences just with that one picture.
Fantastic. Now, Becky, a quick aside. Looks like you're in a school at the moment.
I'm in a library, yeah.
Years ago, before even the Countryside Council for Wales, which is going back a bit, the Nature Conservancy Council used to produce posters to go in schools, and CCW continued with that. Is that something that schools still might take on? As you look around, can you see posters on the walls?
Yeah, there isn't a huge amount, but as a parent, I go into my children's school and they do have an eco garden and they do have some things in there. But quite frankly, if organisations like ourselves, like a lot of the sort of organisations that may have been on these sort of calls, if they don't do it, then it won't be done. So I think we do have a role to play with it, to sort of support the curriculum, to support young people to sort of think differently, think bigger. I did a project around wildfires using nature-based solutions for doing that, and we centered it around schools because that link with education, they wouldn't have done anything on that. They were very welcoming of the sort of process, but if we don't provide it and if we don't volunteer that information, then it won't be there, I think.
Maybe that's something, if we get some year-end money, to do a limited run of posters of the before and after visualization.
No, that's good idea.
Hawk them around a few schools. I'm going to draw this one to a close in a bit, but Nigel, you've got some interesting. Well, you've mentioned the agroforestry visualizations earlier on. Anything else you'd like to come in on before we round it up?
Just a word of caution. When you are visualizing anything, be very careful what you are omitting, leaving out, or including, because you can readily get people's backs up. Just as a simple example, in the process of visualizing tree equity delivered in the image that I posted first, on the hills, there were no livestock whatsoever, whereas a mere small smattering of livestock really changes the whole aspect and critique that might come back at me later. Farmers would say, oh, here's your vision on the future, but there's no sheep on those hills. I feel attacked. Or conversely, with forestry or conifers, I very deliberately made sure in that visualization there's a mix of conifer and broadleaf to again mitigate that attack. So what you include, what you don't, you've got to be really careful about.
Yeah, and I saw that with the visualizing. We were doing another one, and he said, "Oh, can we have some cows in that field?" And then he came up with big Frisian cows. Like, "Oh, no, we won't be having cows like that. We want to have some, belted Galloways. You want some Welsh blacks there. That's about conservation farming." And yeah, so like I saw it from that perspective and what that could do. And equally on the other side of it, a farmer go, "Well, what's wrong with my Frisian?" And it is a real balance to take, and it has got to be caveated, and it has got to go. We've got to work with it, but the principles are that we are looking for that balance. And yeah, no one thing is out of bounds, but yeah, balance.
Yeah, I definitely had also had a similar thought and was trying to caveat it slightly, by saying this is inspirational, but actually make sure you speak to technical experts what is right for this specific environment. That old age saying right tree in the right place and that kind of thing is sort of, it can't just be taken as gospel in terms of, oh, this is what this picture's showing. So I think that engagement from technical experts that we're saying at an early stage is really important to make sure that it fits the environment that it represents.
I like that. It reminds me of the old saying, having experts on tap, but not on top, and then working with the community to co-create something that touches hearts as well as minds. I don't know if I can top any of that, so I'm going to just express my extreme thanks to you, Becky, and to you, Naomi, for giving us your time this morning, to Nigel for participating so wholeheartedly, and to Zoe for sitting there and taking it all in. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. And
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
More details of the next webinar soon.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.